So I'm pretty sure you guys have all played one or two board games of your time, but I bet you haven't experienced Parcheesi the way I have. Just one roll of the dice, and it just starts out like any other game. I actually did a good roll there, but I'll explain that to you later. Well, I've known this game for about a year. I got pretty obsessed with it, and I've had it for 4 months, and I've never read like the rules and regulations that come with it until like I had to do this. So whether it's a rainy day or a family get-together, I mean you've all encountered the games, and I'm pretty sure, like me, none of you guys have like read the rules in detail. I will explain to you the history of Parcheesi and the rules of the game. Okay. So the first thing is that there are different versions. The original version is from India, and it was called Parcheesi. It's spelled P-A-C-H-I-S-I, which is not how you say it right here. Instead of like how it is now, David Parlett from Oxford History Board Game stated that the original game is a more skill-demanding partnership game. This one you can play partners or all by yourself to get home. Normally, it's made out of cloth, the original games, because not everybody can afford this. So more rich people have it just this cruciform, just a little crisscross, and it's made out of cloth. And the rich people have like it outlined in gold and everything, because they can afford that. And so it's been played a lot. The Indians didn't have dice like we do. They had to play with cowrie shells, and it's a regular shell, but if it landed on showing its little claws, it would be like 1 point, and if it landed on its back, it would be no points. So if 3 of them landed face up, you would get to move 3 spaces instead of 6. It was first owned in America by E.G. Selchow Company in New York City, and that happened around 1869. And the one I have was made, well, not made, the design was made in 1939 when it was owned by Selchow and Ryder Company. Before it came to America, archaeologists discovered it in Mongol areas. It was a really big game for the Mongols. Like, they had it inscribed in their palace floors. It was in the palace of Agra and Allahabad. It was in their courtyards, and it was just inside the marble floor. It was the board game, just the X, not the little circles on the ends. And an emperor named Akbar, he even stood from a central dais, which is like a place where military leaders would stand to overview their footmen. But he used it as a place to just see the whole board. And he would use slave girls, and he would have them dress in the colors that the pawns are, and have them move around as he rolled the dice. In Canada, the Europeans, the Canadians took it from the Europeans, it's known as Ludo. And in Germany, it's known as Kleefeld. It's known as many different things throughout the world. Another one that's known here in California, the United States, is Pollyanna. It's named after a movie. I know Disney did the remake. The movie is just about this very high-spirited, optimistic girl, And instead of getting home, as I will teach you in just a couple of moments, it's about getting to Polonia. And next, the rules of the game. Okay, so these are all your bases. This one's for yellow, because that's where yellow enters. This one's for green, because that's where green enters, and so on. And to enter, you need to roll a 5. So that can either be this, like I rolled right there, which would have been perfect for me to get out of 5, and then move 3 spaces, or it could be this, 3 plus 2 equals 5, or 4 plus 1, anything that equals 5, or 5 and 4, or 5 and 3, anything like that. And to move them, I just keep rolling the dice, and if I get doubles, like 4 and 4, I have to add the top and the bottom. 4 plus 3 is 7. The top and the bottom always equal 7. And I double those rolls. So I have 14. So it's I either move 2 of my pawns 7 times or 1 14 times. These spaces right here are the safe spaces. And it's better to land on those so that because if you land right here and somebody lands in the same space, you have to go all the way back home to wherever that may be. And rolling doubles is really good because it really helps you advance, but getting 3 doubles 3 times in a row leads your highest player that's closest home back to base. I like to think of this as a kind of a military game. Like this is where the military soldiers start off captured by the enemy, and to exit they need a level 5 plan, and they travel around the board, and if they get captured, they get sent back home. They get sent back to base. Sorry, this is home. This is where they want to be. And the airplane that doesn't leave till all 4 soldiers are home. And you just have to travel around the base, and they can block you if they put 2 of the same color in one square. My sister does it all the time. It's so annoying. And not even her soldiers can pass it, so it's a pretty good defense system. And it's just starting here and traveling all the way through this. All the way back to home. It's a long journey and really challenging. So, just to end it up, Parcheesi is lots of fun for everyone. That is included just ages and up, because that's all they can play. But I'm not here to convince you of the game, because I'm just here to explain history and how to play.
We're getting your dice. Eileen, what did you think?
Okay, so I really like how you threw the dice in the beginning. That grabbed my attention because I didn't know what you were going to talk about. Your thesis was really clear. At first I couldn't see the transitions until the second part with the how to play the game. But you could tell that you did a lot of research with the history, because you knew a lot of stuff and you did a lot of research. I loved how you did your own little dice, and that made us see the dice is up close, obviously. So that was a good visual aid. I like the example that you used with the military. And then when you start talking about the how-to section, It shows that you really like the game and you knew like how to play it, so it made it clear for me to understand.
All right. I'd have skipped the pre-question or the pre-speech question and just gone with what you had at the beginning, because I think you kind of diminished the value of that a little bit by asking us about whether or not we've played or know the game. I think it would work better if you didn't have if you didn't have that information and if we're not anticipating immediately what your subject is as a consequence. I know what the topic is. I'm not quite sure what it is I'm supposed to get out of this. I don't think I've learned exactly how to play the game. I know a little bit more about it than I did before. The historical stuff I think is interesting. That's one of the things that adds to the speech and makes it worth listening to, is that you're adding some context and some unusual information into the story. I think everybody appreciated hearing the story about the emperor using real people on his own Parcheesi board as he stands on a dais looking at the field of play there. I think we could do a little bit more with some historical stuff about how is the game really supposed to be based on military strategies, or is it a simple game? I guess I don't know if there's a classification for these types of games where it's a chase around the board, and there are strategies for doing X and Y. The tough thing, though, is when you get into that second section and you start talking about the game itself, it's always hard to kind of understand a game like this by talking about it. It's always easier to understand it by seeing and by showing and by demonstrating, and you've got a little bit of a disadvantage because you have to keep holding the board up to show us those kinds of things. And then you've got the dice that you have to roll separately, which means you got to put the board down. And I'm not exactly sure how like when you're talking about you can move one piece 14 times or two pieces 7 times, but that has to come after they've gotten out by a roll of 5, and then what comes after 5. I mean, it just gets a little complicated, and showing an example or two would be helpful. And I guess the objective is to be the first one around, and how the blocking works. I don't know how many pawns there are in the game. I have no idea whether there are 2 or 50, because that's one of those pieces of information that we didn't really get here. You mentioned your sister, puts pieces in there to block the board, and I'm going, well, that sounds like that's the end of the game. If you block the board at one spot, nobody else can move. Game's over there. Does that person win because they keep everybody else from moving around the board, or is there any way? So there's just a lot of stuff that you're trying to explain in a short amount of time. It's hard to do. It might be better to just simplify what the purpose of the game is, give a couple of explanations about how the game's played, and then talk about the historical stuff. So in other words, instead of making the second part of the speech about playing the game, make that the opening of the speech. It's just a game here. It's got some basic moves to it, and you hear the kinds of things that you do. But here's how the game is developed, and here's how it's changed. And you say there are different forms of the game, and I'm going, okay, so what are the different forms of the game? And then you mentioned the fields. They didn't have the circle fields. So why are they there? How is that a part of the game or not? Is that just a design question? There's just so many questions that come up that I think you could also be answering, but because you get stuck trying to do the other thing, it makes it a little bit tough. I liked a lot of the things that you did. There were some things that I'd agree. I like the dice; they're cute. Your big paper die there, that works really well. And I like the roll to get the attention. I thought that worked well. Like I said, I like the story about the emperor, and I like the language that you used at one point where you say. You're talking about, I guess you have to have a level 5 plan to get out. I mean, that tickles the funny bone. That's exactly the kind of stuff that you need to do. So you've got that part of giving the speech down. You got to just get the content, kind of figure out, okay, how am I going to focus this and get more out of what I'm doing, and why am I talking about this? Is my purpose to explain how to play the game, or is it to just kind of give the game a context? And it sounds to me more like that second thing is really what you want to be doing in the speech, instead of trying to get into all of the other details, which are hard to do in these circumstances. All right, I'll just mention it.